You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Can an ancient practice offer new hope for living with chronic illness? Stay tuned for more. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. This episode explores the powerful intersection of yoga and chronic illness management. We delve into how this ancient practice can be adapted to support us in our ongoing health challenges, offering a gentle yet effective approach to wellness. Our guest shares insights from her personal journey and professional experience, illuminating how yoga can become a valuable tool for navigating chronic conditions. The conversation touches on the physical benefits of adapted yoga practices, as well as the mental and emotional support it can provide. We discuss how mindfulness and movement can work together to aid in pain management and help us reclaim a sense of balance and well-being. Kayla Kurin is an award-winning writer who has traveled, lived, and worked in over 50 countries. She loves finding warm bodies of water to swim in and wellness practices with cult-like followings. Her writing has been published in the Toronto Star, Fodor's, Yoga International, and other places online and in print. She is the author of Yoga for Chronic Pain, 7 Steps to Aid Recovery of Fibromyalgia Through Meditation and Yoga. Here is my interview with Kayla Kurin. Hi, Kayla. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because yoga for chronic illness is such a fascinating topic to speak about today. And I think so relevant in today's world where so many people are experiencing chronic or mystery illnesses or chronic pain. So thank you for joining us today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for the welcome and for starting the conversation.
Yeah, I'm really curious to speak about this today, and I'm so glad you are here. So start us off a little bit with your own story and what you have been through, what your journey has been like, and how you ended up doing what you do today with yoga. How does that all fit into the picture?
Yeah, so I started getting sick when I was in my teens, so around 12 or 13. And the main symptom at the beginning was fatigue, also had a lot of pain, brain fog, insomnia. Yeah, kind of all those things. The doctors didn't really know what was going on. So I got told to drink Coke to get more energy and stuff like that. And I think especially as a child, they weren't super keen to medicate me, but then that did start to happen. So I went on a whole bunch of different sleeping pills and kind of cycled through those, and they would work for a little bit and then stop working. And then, as I think a lot of people will relate to, most of my blood work was normal, but I did have some hormonal issues. I got diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, as well as chronic fatigue syndrome. So I started taking the hormonal contraception to help with PCOS symptoms, but for the fatigue, for the sleep, there was kind of nothing to be done. And I didn't feel, and I mean, at the time, I didn't know anyone was supposed to be doing this because I was a child, but I didn't feel in retrospect that anyone was really looking at the full picture at what some of the root causes of these things may have been. And so it was a real struggle. I really struggled through high school and university, and, really big credit to the high school and the university that I went to, and that, they did consider it a disability. And so I was able to get accommodations so that I could finish school. But yeah, it was really difficult. And I got a referral probably about 7 or 8 years after the diagnosis. I got a referral to an environmental health clinic. And so it felt like a second school because they had like a huge schedule. I was going there several times a week. And so there I would see the doctor, I would do therapy. I worked with a dietitian, I worked with an occupational therapist. And that's where I started doing yoga and mindfulness. So I took the mindfulness-based stress reduction course that John Kabat-Zinn created, and also took a yoga course there. And so sometimes when people ask me like, oh, what was the one thing, or was yoga the one thing? I mean, I think it was so many different things that helped me. But after, about a year of doing these treatments, I really started to notice a difference. And I think the biggest thing is that then I felt like I had the tools to work with it. And I really started to understand about nervous system regulation and maybe what was going on for some of the symptoms, or even, what I could do to put my body into a healing mode. So even if still nobody knew what was causing anything, maybe there would be a chance for my body to heal itself. So yeah, I continued to, be conscious of what I was eating and my approach to working and that sort of thing, and really continued on with the yoga and meditation practice. And the reason that I wanted to go that route of teaching the yoga and the meditation is because I felt like that mindfulness and that body awareness and mind awareness informed everything else. It made it easier to know, oh, these foods make me feel terrible, so I'm going to not eat them anymore. Or, I think I'm not sleeping because I was stressed about this thing because my mind was wandering, or my mind wasn't wandering, but my body felt off for some reason. So that's why I found it, I think, such a powerful tool, is that those mindfulness and bodily awareness skills kind of informed so many of the other things that I was doing. So yeah, I eventually trained to teach yoga. At the time when I started, there was yoga therapy, the idea of it and the practice of it in the West, obviously within India and Ayurvedic medical systems, they always knew about it. But in the West, it was still quite new. Not a lot of people were doing it. And so yeah, I kind of designed my own program based on what was working for me and what was working for other people, and took, again, people weren't talking as much about trauma informed things, but, taking a trauma informed approach, because I do think, whether or not we're thinking about trauma potentially being involved as a cause of chronic illness, or just, having medical trauma because of not being able to get the help that you need for your illness, I think like, that's such an important part of what I do as well. And then, yeah, really created some online courses and online offerings, because as we know, it can be hard to follow a consistent schedule or make it to a class on person when you're not doing well. And yeah, here we are.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that journey with us. And I am absolutely just taken aback that all these things were already diagnosed when you were just a young child, and you didn't even, I would imagine at that time, really know the medical system or know what was available to you. Did you have anyone advocating for you while you were going through all of this? Or did you have to more or less navigate this by yourself, or maybe with your parents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was navigating it myself and with my parents. And, my mom was advocating for me and was always with me at doctor's appointments, and was doing some research on her own. And I think found a support group on her own as well. But, she doesn't work in the medical field. She also didn't know what was wrong. She also didn't really know what needed to be done or what could be done. So, yeah, it was very difficult.
Yeah. Is that part of what you see in your practice today? Is that when people come to you, they may have already been through a lot of those things, searching, may have had multiple doctors, and like you said, lots of normal lab results that didn't give any clues, no diagnosis, nobody knows what's going on. And does that traumatize people in a sense, just by having to go through that and always ending up in a place where you don't have an answer? Do people come to that point, and when they find you as well?
Yeah, I think definitely most of the students I work with have, seen a lot of doctors, have kind of been in the medical system, and have, some of them I feel have been very failed by the system. Others, are supported by the doctors, but there's only so much the doctors can do because there's no medication for it. And yeah, I mean, I write some comedy now around chronic illness as well. And it's all fun and good to poke fun at the doctors and such who aren't, always presenting the best solutions or listening to the problems most seriously. But at the same time, I think, in general, the doctors really are doing their best, and especially in North America, and I think in Western Europe as well, or, much of the world really, our medical systems are not set up to look at problems holistically. And that's more of a resourcing issue than like an individual doctor issue. And unfortunately, because of the lack of resources, they have to prioritize the thing that, oh, this person, now has diabetes or heart disease or can't something that, is going to kill them right now if we don't treat this. And we need to prioritize that and the medications or treatments we have for that. And so kind of all these people with things with illnesses that are life altering and really impact people's quality of life and ability to enjoy life kind of get brushed to the wayside because there just isn't the resourcing for it. So yeah, and of course, some individual doctors are going to be not so great and some are going to be really amazing, but even the most amazing doctor, unfortunately, in the systems we have just isn't able to provide the care needed, or all of the care needed, at least for these complex chronic conditions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it is a lot of what I have experienced and share in experiences with other guests and clients as well. So when it comes to yoga, I mean, there are many different kinds of yoga, many different types of yoga. And it can be a very individual experience depending on, what path we choose. So how do you start off when a client comes to see you and they may have a mystery illness or they might not even know what their chronic illness is? Is there a path that you first take them down to kind of do some generic work, or how does that usually look when you start working with a client when you're not quite sure what's going on?
Yeah, I try to take a very individualistic approach. And when it's a group program or a pre-recorded program, taking a really gentle, trauma-informed approach so that people can really learn to listen to their bodies, because I think that is the main thing that we're trying to accomplish. And yeah, I think of myself less as like a teacher and more as I want to say guide, but then that sounded very pretentious. But a bit more as a guide who's done this practice and can guide you through it, but I'm not inside your body. I don't know how things are feeling for you. And particularly in the styles of yoga I teach, I'm not as focused on form. So the pose doesn't need to look a certain way. It's really about how it feels in your body. So really from the start, encouraging students to listen to what's happening. And when I am working with someone one-on-one, checking in a lot. And then, yeah, just of course, getting a bit more information about where they're at, pain-wise, energy-wise, symptom-wise, so I can design a program. And yeah, I really look at a mix of yogic styles and then can kind of pull from them as needed, depending on the person.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of trying to think in my head what that would look like, because there are many different pieces to yoga. The one that we very much see on the internet is the poses, of course, so where people do these stunning things in front of these really nice backgrounds. But there's a lot more to yoga, like the breath work, and there's also, the eating part, the Ayurveda part. So do you bring different elements into this practice, or do you find that that's almost too overwhelming for some people? So where do you find that middle ground in your own practices?
No, I definitely bring in breath work and meditation to my practice. I think it's really, really important, especially for people with chronic illnesses like chronic pain, for example, who may not have a big range of movement, who may feel pain in a lot of the poses. So being able to do things where you're just lying down or just sitting on a chair is really, really important. And yeah, I definitely think the benefit of a system like yoga or meditation is its holistic approach. And so I wouldn't want to lose that holistic part of it. So I think, those mindfulness and breathing exercises are really important.
Yeah. And what do you find happens to people? I mean, you can speak from a first person experience here, because obviously you had some changes and transformations happen in your life. So what happens when you start consistently practicing this? For you said over, I think, a year, and that was making a difference. How long do people have to practice before they see anything? And what happens when they do see things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies a lot from person to person. I know for me, the first thing that happened because I did a lot of sports as a kid, and I mean, I still do now as an adult. So like, and when I first got sick, I couldn't do the sports anymore because I would feel so exhausted afterwards. So the first thing that I noticed was yoga was like the one physical activity I could do without just feeling worse afterwards, even if I didn't necessarily feel better. And then slowly over time started feeling better and better and better. And just to contrast that to the sleep medications I was on at the time, where it was almost the opposite effect, where it could be really effective at first, and then I would build up a tolerance and it would become less and less effective. So I think as well, that's why looking at things like mindfulness and yoga and meditation, and, really honestly, anything, I have not done very much Tai Chi or Qigong, but I think those are working under the same pretense as really any mindfulness-based practices that come from all over the world, is that they really build on themselves rather than gaining tolerance to them. So yeah, the amount of time people need to see a difference is going to really depend on the person. Some people after one session notice they feel really good. Of course, if you only ever do one session, it probably is not going to last for too long. But yeah, I would say in general, a few weeks to a few months to really start noticing that maybe you're feeling different, even if it's just after the session or a few hours after the session. And usually I would say, yeah, a few months to a year to kind of notice it showing up in other areas of life. And then, yeah, in terms of what people experience, I mean, for me, it was extremely life-changing. There was so much that I was not able to do before. And there was so much that because I was so young, there was so much that I wanted to do that I was worried I wasn't going to be able to do. And yeah, very happily, I've been able to do so much and to travel a lot and to work a lot and follow creative pursuits. So yeah, it's been really great. But yeah, it can vary a lot from person to person. So in my students, I hear from some people that either I'm working with one-on-one or who've read one of my books where they feel the same, that it was completely life-changing. And I hear from other people that, feel very good about it. They feel like this is the one or two times in their week where they feel good and they feel relaxed and they're sleeping better, but it's not completely changed their entire life. And so, yeah, it varies a lot from person to person.
Yeah, it's just like our healing journey, very individual and unique
Exactly.
to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you touched on a couple of really interesting things. So when you first were speaking about the center that you were sent to after when you were still a child, and it had quite an extensive schedule, so it almost felt like school. So these practices, I mean, often when we are experiencing chronic pain or chronic illness, one of the things that happens is that we don't have energy. And very often we also have a lot of brain fog or have trouble remembering or showing up for things. So is it possible to do these practices in a way that can still fit into what we're experiencing at the time without overwhelming us? I mean, is there a lot of things that we need to do, or can this be tailored when people are too tired or they don't have a lot of energy? Can this still be part of the healing journey then?
That's a really good question. And yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it. I think, definitely we can be doing small things. And, I think if you have 10 or 15 minutes a day where you can do some mindfulness practices, some stretching, if you're consistent about that, that can make a huge difference. There was some research done a little while ago, and there's more research on meditation. Yoga, the research is still newer, but, that practicing consistently for shorter periods of time was more effective than doing it less frequently, but a longer practice. So I really do think, yeah, those short periods building it into your day make a really, really big difference. And in some ways, I think can be the most effective, because even if you do have the time to like take a few months or even 1 month or 2 weeks to go on a retreat or do some more intensive healing, eventually you do need to find a way to build that into your normal life. So even if you're not able to do that, I think you can just start where everybody else is going to eventually have to get to. So yeah, I think definitely with 10 to 15 minutes a day, you can start. And I think you might feel surprised at how effective it is. I know it's happened to me sometimes where my personal practice might fall to the wayside for a few weeks. And I start to question, is this even as effective as I think it is? And then even just after like one 20-minute practice of like just knowing I need to get back into the routine. So just do something short that's 15 or 20 minutes. I feel so much better. And then it's kind of refreshing in a way to like lose the practice and come back to it and remember that it does work. Because of course, when you've just done something most days for so many years, you kind of forgot what it was like, or you don't know what it's like anymore to not be doing it. So yeah, I think definitely working with that consistency and working within your own life is really important. Another thing that I think can be really good, for people who may have jobs or families or just don't have the energy or the health to be able to do more, community is so important. So if you do have a family or friends or no other people, even just, through listening to a podcast like this or through finding a yoga class that you can go to, building that into other parts of your life. If you have a job, talking about workplace wellness and what might be done there, being able to build these things into other areas of your life. So it's not an extra thing you have to do on your to-do list, but something that's part of the other things that you're doing. And I know it's been really nice for me to have other friends with chronic illnesses or even just other friends who are a bit more health conscious, instead of, not that we never go out for a drink, but maybe instead of going out for a drink, we're going for a slow walk and having a picnic or going to a yoga class together kind of thing. And then, I think that just makes it feel as well so much more holistic and community based.
Yeah. And I think there is actually a lot of research available that community and support network and things like that make a huge difference in our healing journey. So that's a really excellent point that you're making. Now, I am wondering a little bit about why this works or how this works. And you touched on the nervous system. And so I don't want to obviously jump here into a big science lesson or anything, but does this type of yoga practice affect the nervous system? And then how does that help us with chronic pain or chronic illness? How does all that come together?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't have a doctorate or medical background or anything, but I'll explain it as I understand it. And that, one of the main benefits of yoga is that it can relax the nervous system. So we kind of have several parts to the nervous system. The sympathetic and the parasympathetic are kind of the main ones that I will talk about. And so the parasympathetic is more our resting state, and it's called rest and digest. And the sympathetic is more fight or flight or fawn or freeze, if you want to, go down all of that. And so that's more like the stress response. And so we can already hear from the names which one is probably better to be in most of the time, and which one many of us with chronic illness are probably in most of the time, because it's very stressful to have a chronic illness. So yoga can really help activate that rest and digest system. And I know me personally, and so many of my students and other people that I've talked to have so many, no matter what their condition is, they have trouble sleeping and they have trouble with food and food intolerances and things. And so I think, even just when I heard that it was called rest and digest, I was like so many bells dinging off. So yoga and meditation, both the physical movements combined with the breathing practices and the mindfulness, can really calm that nervous system and get you into that rest and digest. So that's why so many people feel good afterwards and feel relaxed afterwards. And what can happen then is once your nervous system gets used to be able to going into this place, can say, oh, look, I had a stressful morning and then I came to the yoga class and then I felt relaxed, as more used moving between those two things, which is how it's supposed to function. It's not that we're never meant to be stressed out. Then you can do that even without the yoga class. You can start to, whether it's a conscious thing of you remember, okay, the stressful thing happened. I'm going to take a few deep breaths. I'm going to plant my feet in the ground. I'm going to center before I go on with my day. Or if it happens, subconsciously, if you just take a moment and then go on, I think many people find that starts to build up. And so your nervous system becomes a lot more balanced. And when your nervous system is more balanced, that's when you can heal. And that's anything from a chronic illness to a cold. So I know for me personally, and again, a lot of students and people that I've talked to, when I was really sick, like if I got a cold, if anyone around me had a cold, I would definitely get it. I would get it worse than anyone else, and I would get it for longer than anybody else. And so like that's the thing that I've noticed as well, that like I just don't get, I mean, I still probably get just as sick as people who don't have a chronic illness, or maybe slightly more so, but definitely way better than I used to, because yeah, it's even hard for your body to recover from something like a cold if you're always in that hyper aroused state. So getting into that more balanced and restful nervous system doesn't cure everything, but it can cure a lot of things, and it can give your body a chance to try to reset. And I think that's why there's such a big variation, whereas for some people it's like this humongous thing and are able to make so much progress, and for some people it's, you know, part of a bigger picture of a bunch of other things that they're doing, because it's not a cure-all to just balance the nervous system. But if you don't balance the nervous system, it's going to be really hard to do any healing at all. So I think that's why it's such a great tool. It can help a lot with sleep. Again, that calming of the nervous system helps with sleep. Yeah, I've definitely had people fall asleep in yoga class who say like they don't understand. They haven't been able to fall asleep in months, and now all of a sudden they did this half-an-hour class and they fell asleep. And obviously sleep as well is such a huge thing in healing. So it's really about just giving the body a chance to heal itself.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I know that when I've had a lot of chronic stress and I do yoga and we come to the Shavasana, I very often just fall right asleep. But I think it's a good sign that we are able to work with the nervous system in that way, and kind of facilitate a space where actually we can take that rest, even if that's maybe not at the time that we were planning or in our bed or anything like that. But
exactly,
it's a good tool, like you said, to have to be able to do that. Yeah,
it's a good tool, and I think it can be really hard to take rest sometimes, because you might feel like all I've been doing is resting. What are you talking about? But we might not have been actively resting enough. Even if you're lying in bed, if you're worried and thinking about all the things you need to do, the body's not interpreting that as rest. And then I think it's also so difficult to rest, especially on your own, when you are so worried about your health, when you're so worried about all these other life obligations that you might now not be able to do because of your health. So it is really, really difficult. And of course, I would feel strange if someone had a chronic condition and didn't feel stressed. But I think that's, again, where that community piece can come in, and, you know, finding the right yoga class or the right online yoga program, and really taking that time to tap into this system that's kind of grown out through meditation, and, you know, of course, comes from India and Hindu and Buddhist practices, but has now, you know, modernized and pulls from a lot of different schools of thoughts. And yeah, really, really being able to lean into that and learn from that, and grow from that, and take some rest.
Yeah. I feel like there's often a lot of guilt around rest, because like you said, sometimes it looks like people with chronic pain do nothing but rest. But as you said, we are also internally fighting all that pain at the same time. We can't really rest. We have all that internal stress going on. And so when we are sitting on the couch or on the chair or in the hammock, I don't know, it looks like a laziness. And that's something that I was accused of at various times as well, because it just looked like I wasn't doing anything. But it's very easy for people who aren't in that exact situation to interpret that as, okay, well, you're just not doing anything. But the body is really fighting very hard and using up a lot of resources and energy at that point without being able to properly rest. So I think it's really, really important that we have these tools to go to, that we have these tools that we can add to our self-care, to our healing path, you know, that will give us some of that rest that we really need to actually do some healing. So yeah. And the community to talk to when you're being accused of being lazy on the couch, to come to that community and say, wow, that just felt really awful. So I'm coming to this community to share and kind of bounce some ideas. So yeah, that sounds like a really great place for people to come to. So let our listeners know, how can they connect with you, and what kind of programs and services do you offer your clients and students?
Yeah, so my website is arogayoga.com, so you can find everything there. And I have various levels because it's really important to me to make this information as accessible as possible. So I do work with people one-on-one, usually over Zoom, so it's available anywhere in the world. So you can contact me for that. And then I have a few online programs. So kind of the flagship program for resetting that nervous system is open to everyone with chronic illness, called Chronically Kind Yoga, and that's a go at your own pace 6-week program that's available on the website. And then I have a few mini programs as well, so talking about what do you do if you don't have too much time or don't have too much energy, and kind of have these mini programs. So they're 10 days. Of course, they're also go at your own pace. You can take as long as you want, but 10-minute videos for $10. And I've personalized those for chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and insomnia. So there's 3 different ones. So those are also available. And then I have books also for those 3 topics. Those are available to buy on most booksellers, I believe, on Amazon and most booksellers. Audiobooks are available for those as well if you prefer to listen. And in those books, I look at all the holistic aspects we've been talking about today. So finding routines, sleep, nutrition, mindfulness, breathing exercise, as well as yoga exercises. Yeah, I think is that everything. Yeah. So those are all the ways that you can work with me and find my resources. And then I think I briefly mentioned I now have a little comedy group of all people with chronic illnesses and disabilities, and we make little sketches about life with chronic illness because we think you got to laugh about it sometimes. And we're called Sick Bay Comedy, and Bay is spelled BAE. We were really proud of that pun, and then we realized that it's hard when you say it out loud. Nobody knows what you're talking about. So we're Sick Bay Comedy, and we're on YouTube and Instagram.
Wonderful. And we, of course, will be linking to all of Kayla's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there on how you can find her, how you can sign up for a program if you're interested in working with her or working on the group aspect, the community that you offer. And yes, I do believe it's so important to sometimes bring humor into these situations. It actually helps us, I think, also heal the nervous system. I think humor does something to take your mind off of that stress that's constantly going on. So bringing that in sounds like a really wonderful idea to support healing. And we'll put the links in the show notes so that all our listeners can find you out there and can partake and share in all of these wonderful offerings. And I just want to thank you for being here today and sharing all this wonderful information with us and giving us some insights into another tool that we could be adding to our toolbox when it comes to chronic illness, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, as you said. So thank you so much for your time today and your wisdom, Kayla, and thank you for sharing that. It was a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take really good care of yourself.
You too.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.